Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I have a couple questions to ask, and of course we're going to get into the answer. But is prepping enough? Is that enough for all the things that we're facing? Just the standard run-of-the-mill, when you do the little Googles and you figure out, according to them, what preparedness is and what prepping is. When you turn on your little whatever TV shows you want to call that talks about preppers and how they stock up, is that enough to get through what we're facing? I want to get into that in just here in a second. But I also want to remind you to go and subscribe to my Rumble channel. It is completely free. There is a link in the description below. Most all the content that I produce here on YouTube is now also being put on Rumble, but because Rumble is a free speech platform, I'm now also putting things on there that we certainly can't talk about here on YouTube. My wife and I are doing a weekly fireside chat. Yeah, we were sitting out here just a little bit ago, had the fire going more than it is now. It's trying to get it going again though. We sit out here for about 45 minutes, having a cup of coffee, and talking about some conspiracies that you guys might enjoy. We talked about Hollywood and CIA and MK Ultra and Blue Book and Blue Beam and all those other, not Blue Book, Blue Beam and all those nice little conspiracies. And you might really enjoy that one. The point was we were talking about how to prepare your children for the world, especially with all that kind of stuff that's going on in our world today. Anyway, so go over to Rumble, not Patreon, Rumble. You can go to Patreon too. I talked about the ammo supply shortage that we're probably going to be facing soon because it's out in the news that they're worried about an ammo shortage because of the war in Ukraine. We talked about that on Patreon. That'll get you in the door. $1 will just get you in the door so that you can watch Patreon videos. And there's different levels. But Rumble is completely free. So go down to the description below, click on the link for the Rumble channel, and subscribe there so that you can watch, because at some point, we all know that this YouTube thing is just not going to be a place for us type of people to be on. So back to the original question. Is prepping enough? Is that enough to get you through all this stuff that's happening and that's coming our way? To be, short and blunt about it, no, it's not. It's not enough. It's not enough. If you go back to, and this is all my opinion, the history of prepping, modern day prepping, it started off in the survivalist movement. In fact, I kind of mentored underneath a guy that was very much part of that survivalist movement. Not the bad guy. There's all kinds of bad things that people try to twist about the whole survivalist movement of the 70s and 80s, and the vast majority of it's lies. Good guy, and taught me a lot of the stuff that I know. And that kind of morphed into modern day prepping. You had, the Doomsday Prepper TV shows and stuff like that. At first, it was kind of a joke, and in the last decade or so, it's become its own industry, and people, a lot of people do it. A lot of people consider themselves preppers, and it's not so much of a weird thing anymore to be a prepper. The problem is a lot of people think as long as they got a few weeks of food in their pantry and maybe a couple of water filter straws or something like that, that they're going to be good to go, that they can just, as long as they can ride it out for 2 weeks, 30 days, maybe 90 days tops, they'll be doing good. And so the rest of their life is pretty much just as normal as anyone else. Everything's normal. Maybe they have a few guns, and maybe they have a pantry full of food. And I'm not putting anyone down. I'm just saying that's pretty much the standard when it comes to modern day prepping. And in fact, a lot of the preparedness videos of prepper channels, and again, I'm not putting them down, especially in the early days, kind of portrayed that. It just talked about, bug out bags and, gear and food storage. You know, putting little caches out in the woods where you can, you know, go and find stuff that you stored for emergencies, and that was about it. But I personally believe that it's not enough. That's for those little temporary hiccups, little speed bumps along the way. That's what that kind of prepping is for. The things that we're facing right now and how the world is changing and building, whether or not you believe what's in the Bible or not, it's how things are being set up. It's how the chessboard is being set up. It's going to take a whole lot more than a 30, 60, or 90-day supply of food. I fully believe that. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to be out and away from all of this. This morning, my video was, getting out of Babylon again. And of course, so many people, they kind of miss the point because they want to debate what the word Babylon means. Well, in the Bible, it talks about it, and even, theologians and scholars kind of debate on what exactly in the end-time prophecies is Babylon. Is it America? Is it Russia? Is it Israel? Is it Iran? Is it this? Is it that? In the context of the video this morning, I wasn't talking about necessarily a biblical meaning. I was talking about the world. The world is Babylon. The world, the modern world, the big cities, that modernity and the cities and the hustle and the bustle. That's Babylon. Get out and away from it. Physically get out and away from it. Mentally, spiritually get out and away from it. Be set apart from it. And the best and the easiest way to do it is to not be around it. It doesn't mean that living out here in these woods and stuff, there's not evilness and there's not bad people. It means there's a whole lot less of them. And it's much easier to raise your children in traditional biblical values and to raise a family and to find others of this, mindset. Sure, you can do it in a big city, but it's so much easier out in the country. And that's what I meant. But anyways, I'm going off on rabbit trails. When it all comes crashing down, it's great to have a food supply. And I talk about that all the time. Have all kinds of food. Have 1 to 2 years minimum. 1 to 2 year minimum food supply. That's really a minimum goal that you should shoot for. If you can do 4 or 5 years, go for it. But 1 to 2 years should be a minimum. And that's not what you're going to survive on necessarily. That's really that buffer to get you to a point that you can be fully self-sufficient, which should be your overall goal. Your goal should be producing your own food. You should be actively working on that right now. Now the smoke's going to get in my eyes. To actively try to produce as much of your own food as you can, because you can't live off of your food storage forever. You're going to have to eventually be producing your own food. And that food storage that you have is just a buffer. It's to give you food to eat for a couple of years, and you can take that couple of years and throw everything into your garden then. You put all of your effort. Right now you're doing your best, but you got other things in the world going on. But eventually, when you're truly surviving out of that, you're going to throw a lot more effort, energy into it, really build it up. And so you'll have a 2-year food supply to kind of hold you over until, all you have is your garden to live out of, and the woods and the animals in the field and that kind of stuff. It's unfortunate that there's so much information out there about preparedness, prepping. And there's so much information out there about homesteading and even self-sufficiency off-grid. But it's like it's a abomination, a taboo to blend the two together. And that's really where you should be. You should blend it together. Maybe your focus is survival and survivalism and defense and guns and military militia type stuff, and that's fine. But you also need to be into herbalism and growing tomatoes and taking care of chickens and knowing how to butcher a goat and a sheep and going out here and cutting your own wood down and mending injuries and taking care of sick children. You need to know how to do that kind of stuff too, how to mend your clothes. That's the kind of stuff everyone needs to know how to do. And so to be truly prepared for the things that are coming our way, you need to be more than just a prepper. You need to be more than just a homesteader. You really need to, set your goals to be as self-sufficient as possible, that you can exist outside of the system. You may not live the life you're living now. It may not be as great and comfortable and luxurious, but will you survive? Yeah. And that's the goal that you should really be searching for. I use it in analogy all the time, just to kind of give people an idea, because I think most people know what I'm talking about. But you need to live like, Little House on the Prairie, that TV show. Maybe even more rustic than that, but certainly you need to be able to live that way, in the sense that you're capable of enduring a lot of hardships on your own. You're capable of producing the vast majority of the stuff that you need to survive on your own. You need to be capable of that. Doesn't mean you need to be doing it right now. Just means that you need to be capable. And that's where the beauty of tribe, community, groups and stuff come in, because it's very difficult for one person or one family to do all this on their own. It's really hard. It's hard to raise the sheep and the goats and the cows and the chickens and the fields of corn for all of them and other animals, and provide defense while you're cutting down wood and milling lumber and making boots and mending clothes. It's hard to do it all. Really, it's impossible, but it's hard, to say the least. So when you have a community, a group of people, that's where it comes in. So, one person is the cobbler, and one person is the, sawmill runner guy, and the other person is raising the dairy for everyone, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's an ideal situation. That's what we should strive for. I know it's difficult. I try not to oversimplify it. I know it's difficult. It truly is. But it doesn't mean that we can't attain that. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have those goals. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't work every day to try to find ways to disconnect ourselves from the system, to sever that umbilical cord. I call it cultural secession. Seceding from this modern system. Saying that, I'm going to figure out a way that I don't have to use this. I'm going to figure out a way that I don't need this. And maybe I still use it for right now, but I'm going to figure out a way that I can exist without it when the time comes. This is the kind of stuff that we really should be working on, because prepping alone isn't really enough. And I understand there's so many people that say, well, they're going to come for you anyways. They're going to take your land. They're going to, make you not be able to live out like that. And it's very likely so. But there's a couple of benefits to this. Number one, they're not going to come for us first. They're going to come from the people in the city first. So it gives us a little time. Secondly, I know from my own training and the things that I went through, because that we talked about this one time in a training that I went through on a federal level. And they said that it would be very difficult to round up people out in the country. It's a big complication. It's hard to do. It's hard for them to justify sending a lot of soldiers, let's say, out here in the country, knowing that they're going to get picked off little by little, because they saw it happen in Afghanistan, they saw it happen in Vietnam, and they've seen it happen throughout history. It's going to be very difficult for them to make that decision. And I understand, well, they have chemical weapons, they have, all this other technology, drones and things. Well, that's true, but there are defenses against those if you plan it and work it out. And, we actually have the home advantage out here in the country. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean that they're not going to succeed. It's going to be very difficult for them. I mean, the most powerful and advanced military in the world ended up, unfortunately, not being very successful in Afghanistan, fighting against guys living in the hills and the caves and the woods and stuff, mostly using 60 to 100-year-old weapons. So it is possible. And living this lifestyle gives you much more advantages. It gives you a big edge over just prepping and over living in a modern life. It's hard. It's not easy. But there are wonderful moments that you can spend doing like this with a beautiful backdrop. But it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of sacrifice. And for those that are willing to do it, I would strongly encourage you to do so, because Doesn't mean you won't survive in your townhouse with a closet full of freeze-dried food, but you're going to survive a lot better, a lot easier, have a greater chance of surviving if you're living out like this. So, yeah, prepping's not enough. You need to do more. Push yourself. Push hard, because your life depends on it, literally. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually, and then go over and subscribe to the Rumble channel so that you can see the extra content I'm putting up over there. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.